In today's edition, newly declassified documents would prove that Hitler ended his life in Argentina.
For decades, Argentina has held secrets darker than the night sky, havens for thousands of Nazi war criminals who vanished after World War II. Among these shadows lurks a question that chills even the staunchest historians. Could Adolf Hitler have escaped the fall of Berlin and lived out his last days in South America? Newly uncovered government files reveal a decade-long operation of clandestine escape routes, forged identities, and hidden communities that shielded some of history's most notorious fugitives.
Government documents relating to Nazi fugitives who settled in Argentina after World War II.
What do these revelations mean for justice, memory, and the haunting legacy that still stains Argentina today? Argentina's Nazi haven. After World War II ended, Argentina became one of the most significant refuges for Nazi war criminals fleeing Europe. Estimates suggest that between 5,000 and 10,000 Nazis found safe haven within its borders. This wasn't by accident, but part of a larger, coordinated effort orchestrated under the regime of Juan Peron from 1946 to 1955. For years, Argentina's policies and political stance created an environment where fugitives from justice could disappear into the folds of society. Historians have traced how Argentine officials facilitated the arrivals, deliberately opening immigration channels to help these individuals settle with minimal scrutiny. This included the issuance of entry visas and the provision of identity documents under false names. Many of these new residents integrated into German-speaking enclaves in cities like Bariloche, Córdoba, and Buenos Aires, where they formed tight-knit communities. Locals often remained silent, aware of the histories but unwilling or afraid to confront them. The true scale of this influx only began to be understood after the March 25, 2025 release of classified Argentine government files. For decades, these documents, hidden deep within vaults, quietly mapped out the extent of Nazi settlement across the country. They reveal much more than what was previously supposed, detailing names, financing, and the mechanisms that supported this underground migration. The files confirm a systematic policy that went far beyond isolated cases, painting a picture of a nation knowingly harboring war criminals. Despite the massive numbers, the existence of these communities remained underreported for years. Survivors and investigators have repeatedly described how many Nazis walked freely, conducting business and raising families. The psychological weight on survivors who saw these criminals blending into daily life is immeasurable. One survivor's words echo the pain of that reality. They lived free while we burned. These realities linger, casting long shadows over Argentina's national memory. What makes Argentina's role even more troubling is the apparent coordination with international entities. The involvement of European powers and the Catholic Church, particularly through issuing passports and facilitating banking arrangements, created a transcontinental support system. This network ensured that many escaped not only physical capture, but also the long arm of international law. The rat lines were more than clandestine paths. They were arteries of protection and concealment, running deep into South America. Today, Argentina's Nazi past remains visible through relics, local lore, and communities shaped by this dark history. Even as the world moved on, echoes of these hidden enclaves persisted in culture and politics. The ongoing discovery of Nazi-related artifacts and periodic neo-Nazi activity demonstrate the endurance of this legacy. It serves as a stark reminder that the wounds from that era are not entirely closed, still bleeding into present-day consciousness. Crucially, the question remains, how did such a vast operation stay hidden for so long? The answer lies partly in Argentina's geopolitical isolation during much of the mid-20th century, and partly in complicity at various levels of government. Deals were made, documents purged from archives, and extradition requests ignored. This fostered an atmosphere where accountability was delayed, if not denied, allowing some Nazis to live out their lives under assumed identities. The scope of Nazi settlement in Argentina challenges the common perception that all major war criminals faced swift justice after the war. Instead, it reveals an uncomfortable truth about international politics and the prioritization of convenience or ideology. This concealment shifted the narrative from one of total defeat for the Nazi regime to one of quiet survival and reinvention. What followed in the shadows would come to redefine how history remembers the war's aftermath. Without exposing every detail just yet, it is clear that Argentina's Nazi haven sets the stage for a story that involves politics, secrets, and far-reaching consequences. Understanding this foundation prepares us to unravel the escape routes and the identities of those who found protection here. The full extent of the rat lines only deepens the mystery and forces reflection on justice delayed. The paths that enabled these fugitives to vanish into Argentina's vast landscape were anything but random. The rat lines and escape routes. The term rat lines refers to secret escape networks created specifically to funnel Nazi war criminals out of Europe and into safe havens like Argentina. These clandestine routes operated with remarkable efficiency in the chaotic months following World War II. They relied on forged documents, religious institutions, sympathetic officials, and even financial channels to move people undetected across continents. The newly declassified Argentine files reveal staggering details about how these rat lines functioned. One of the most crucial components was the issuance of thousands of Vatican passports, provided through Bishop Alois Hudal in Rome. These forgeries allowed fugitives to travel under assumed names across Europe and South America. Alongside Vatican papers were thousands of visas stamped by Argentine immigration offices, especially under Juan Perón's government between 1946 and 1950. These papers, often backdated or falsified, gave the illusion of legal entry. Financial support fueled these routes as well. Bank ledgers uncovered in the declassified files show millions transferred from accounts holding looted Nazi gold and valuables. Upwards of $100 million in today's value were funneled through Swiss banks, with some deposits routed through German Argentine firms and Patagonian agricultural estates. These transactions ensured that the newcomers could establish new lives and businesses far from suspicion. Ships and submarines played a vital role too. Mysterious voyages like the arrival of U-977 in Mar del Plata in July 1945, after a 66-day submarine journey, spark many theories. Some reports suggest these vessels transported not only cargo, but also personnel, possibly including high-ranking Nazis. Witness accounts of small rubber boats landing near Argentine shores add to the intrigue surrounding how these fugitives arrived undetected. Argentine immigration logs stamped tens of thousands of entries into ports like Buenos Aires and European cities such as Madrid during these critical years. This bureaucratic trail left a paper path that helped historians and investigators piece together the scale of the rat lines. It shows a coordinated system, not just smuggling, but a sustained political effort to cloak these movements. The issuance of 7,000 entry visas between 1946 and 1950 by Perón's immigration office is a telling example. These escape routes were complex and involved layers of cooperation, including insiders within government agencies, the Catholic Church, and certain international networks. The Simon Wiesenthal Center and U.S. Senator Kevin Daines were pivotal in pressing the Argentine government to reveal these files, unlocking years of secrecy. The declassification in 2025 marked the first official acknowledgement of this vast and coordinated operation. Forged aliases allowed some of the most notorious figures to slip into Argentine society with ease. For example, Adolf Eichmann entered under the alias Ricardo Clement and lived quietly for years. The rat lines didn't just smuggle men, they smuggled entire identities and histories, erasing previous lives and crimes with carefully constructed new facades. This level of detail in document fabrication shows the depth of effort sustaining the escape networks. While rat lines were routes of survival, they were also arteries of impunity. These networks ensured that perpetrators of mass atrocities escaped trial and punishment for decades, if ever. Understanding their operations opens the door to comprehending how such evasion was possible on a global scale. The rat lines are a testament to how political, religious, and economic power can collide to shield those who committed horrific crimes. As the mechanisms of escape begin to make sense, it's important to identify the individuals who moved through these networks and the lives they led in Argentina. These faces put human form to the shadows we've uncovered so far. Some of the most infamous Nazis made their stories part of Argentina's dark history. Key Nazi figures in Argentina. Among the thousands of Nazis who found sanctuary in Argentina, several major figures stand out for their notorious pasts and the roles they played during the war. Adolf Eichmann, the architect of the Holocaust's logistics, is one of the best documented cases. Arriving in July 1950, under the identity Ricardo Clement, Eichmann lived in Buenos Aires until Mossad captured him in 1960. His quiet, polite facade belied one of the most horrific legacies in modern history. Joseph Mengele, known as the Angel of Death, also escaped to Argentina, arriving under an alias and evading justice despite years of efforts to find him. Mengele's presence in Argentine enclaves is well documented through eyewitness accounts and declassified files, although he later fled to Brazil. DNA confirmed his identity after his death, closing some chapters but leaving many lingering questions. These men were not lone exceptions but part of a broader community of Nazis who managed to blend into Argentine society. An estimated 30,000 Nazi officials and collaborators lived across South America, many within German-speaking enclaves in Argentina's Bariloche, Cordoba, and Villa General Belgrano. These groups benefited from policies issued during Peron's presidency, including amnesty decrees and economic incentives. Survivors' testimonies paint a haunting picture of daily life during these decades. Some recall seeing these men in public spaces, hearing their native German spoken quietly, and feeling the scars of living alongside these hidden war criminals. Esther Cohen, a Holocaust survivor, remembered spotting Mengele's face in crowds, a chilling reminder of the past's proximity. Their presence haunted communities, a reminder that justice had long been postponed. Beyond Eichmann and Mengele were others like Klaus Barbie, the butcher of Lyon, who fled to Bolivia but maintained strong ties to the region. Though not strictly in Argentina, his story overlaps with the network enabling Nazi movement through South America. His eventual extradition and trial decades later showed the long reach of international pursuit, but many others never faced trial. Locally, these figures often lived under assumed names and kept low profiles, yet their impact was significant. Business owners, farmers, and community members sometimes knew or suspected but chose silence. Statements like that of Juan Mer, a Buenos Aires cafe owner in 1962, reveal a resigned acknowledgement. They spoke German, kept quiet, and nobody cared. This complicity shaped the cultural atmosphere. Efforts to expose these individuals were hindered by purged records, delayed official action, and occasional protection given by sympathetic elements in government and society. Even interceptions of extradition requests often failed to lead to justice. The uncovered Argentine files show over 300 ignored extradition requests between 1945 and 1960, reinforcing the systematic cover-up. Despite these challenges, justice caught some, and their stories became catalysts for awareness and accountability. Eichmann's capture and eventual execution in Israel in 1962 is the most notable case, demonstrating that no amount of concealment could erase the past forever. His son's later reflections underscore the complexity of legacy and memory in Argentina. The presence of these figures forces a reckoning not just with Argentina's history, but with how the world handled or failed to handle post-war justice. Their stories connect the fabric of this hidden history to the myths and rumors surrounding one man many wonder about most, Adolf Hitler. The rumors about his fate swirl as intensely as ever. The Hitler survival myth. The question of Adolf Hitler's fate has fueled decades of speculation and conspiracy theories, with the most persistent claim suggesting he escaped Berlin's fall to live in South America. This idea first gained traction as whispers of secret passages and underground tunnels beneath the ruined capital emerged shortly after World War II. Accounts from informants and alleged witnesses hinted that the dictator boarded a submarine and fled, escaping justice. In particular, an October 1955 CIA memo features Philip Citroën, a former SS officer who claimed to have met Hitler in Tuna, Colombia, in 1955, referring to him as Adolf Hitler. Eyewitness reports further fueled the rumors. An FBI file from September 21, 1945, includes testimony from a witness named Catalina Gomero, who described encountering a high-ranking German resembling Hitler at an estate in Cordoba in 1948. There were also reports of submarines, like U-977, which arrived at Argentine ports in mid-July 1945 after long voyages. Some speculate these vessels transported key figures rather than just cargo, heightening suspicion around covert escapes. Local accounts of rubber dinghies landing on remote beaches add an eerie layer to the legend. The idea of Hitler's survival gained additional credibility among conspiracists through claims of secret meetings and disguised identities within Latin America. Philip Citroën asserted monthly meetings with Hitler at a hotel in Colombia, alleging ongoing presence long after the supposed death date. These stories paint a picture of a hidden life, shrouded in shadows but tantalizingly close to documented reality. Such accounts fed a public hunger for mystery, defying official history and stirring doubt in whole institutions. Yet these theories face fierce opposition from official evidence and forensic studies. Soviet forces, led by the Smersh investigative team, recovered remains from Hitler's Berlin bunker in 1945. Among the recovered items were jawbone fragments and dental bridges, which dental experts like Hugo Blaschke identified in early May 1945 as belonging to Hitler. Forensic analysis showed bullet wounds and cyanide traces consistent with the official account of Hitler's death by gunshot and poison on April 30, 1945. Bunker survivors, including Otto Gunschy, testified to witnessing Hitler's final moments and the subsequent burning of his body alongside Eva Braun's. Their eyewitness testimonies form a cornerstone of the established historical narrative. More recently, a forensic study conducted in 2018 by Philippe Charlier reaffirmed the dental evidence's authenticity, reinforcing that these remains were indeed Hitler's. Such scientific consensus strongly contradicts the survival claims, anchoring the accepted version of history. Nonetheless, despite the overwhelming evidence, alternative theories persist. Some conjecture that Hitler lived in secret until the early 60s, citing loose ends and inconsistent intelligence reports. Argentine police files allege, without verification, that Martin Bormann, Hitler's secretary, also arrived in South America, stirring further mystery. The purge of documents in later decades and the secrecy surrounding certain investigations leave room for unanswered questions that feed conspiracy culture. The enduring myth of Hitler's escape serves as a case study in how trauma, denial, and unsolved puzzles can perpetuate belief beyond evidence. It taps into a collective disbelief that such an evil figure could vanish without a trace or punishment. This powerful narrative clashes with recorded history but refuses to fade, highlighting the complex interplay between fact, memory, and myth. It is important, however, to separate credible fact from speculation. While shadowy accounts intrigue, they cannot supersede the robust forensic and testimonial record proving Hitler's death in Berlin. Still, the mystery persists in the public imagination, fueled by decades of secrecy and gaps in documentation. The tension between official truth and rumor sets the stage for a deeper understanding of Argentina's role, not whether Hitler escaped, but how and why the country became a sanctuary for his followers. As this discussion unfolds, The contrast between myth and evidence becomes a bridge to consider the broader political and social forces that sheltered so many others who fled the war's repercussions. The official proof of Hitler's death anchors the truth, while Argentina's political climate nurtured concealment. Official evidence of Hitler's death. Scientific, testimonial, and investigative accounts collectively reinforce the historic conclusion that Adolf Hitler died in Berlin on April 30, 1945. Soviet investigators recovered body fragments from the Berlin bunker, including part of a jawbone that dental experts later positively identified as Hitler's. Dentist Hugo Blaschke's verification in early May 1945 was a critical point in confirming the death, as it matched Hitler's unique dental work. These medical findings underpin the official narrative, standing as concrete proof amid turbulent rumors. Among those present in the final days were key eyewitnesses whose testimonies continue to hold weight. Otto Gunsche, Hitler's personal adjutant, described watching the Führer shoot himself before Eva Braun took poison. Both bodies were burned immediately, consistent with Hitler's own instructions to avoid capture. Such direct accounts come from people with little reason to fabricate events in the chaos that followed Germany's defeat. The Soviet team's recovery and identification of remains matched the timeline and circumstances recorded by contemporaries. In addition to dental evidence, chemical traces found at the scene confirmed cyanide poisoning. This forensic data was supported by multiple reports from bunker survivors and military personnel who had direct knowledge of the events. The consistency across independent sources lends strong credibility to the accepted history. Later scientific studies have also reaffirmed these findings. In 2018, forensic expert Philippe Charlier analyzed known dental remains and confirmed the identification with high certainty. These modern methods used DNA comparison and forensic anthropology to close lingering doubt. Such rigorous analysis strengthens the case beyond the limits of wartime chaos and political propaganda. In contrast to the rich forensic record stands a troubling absence of any physical evidence supporting survival theories. Despite decades of searching and multiple intelligence reports, there has been no credible proof of Hitler living beyond 1945. This wide gap between claims and facts emphasizes the strength of the official version. The claims of sightings and submarine escapes remain unsubstantiated and often rely on hearsay or politically motivated rumors. Moreover, some conspiracy theories hinge on forged documents or unreliable witnesses. Many alleged encounters with Hitler in South America come from second-hand accounts or discredited sources. Some intelligence files, including FBI and CIA memos, document rumors, but clearly note their uncertain reliability. This pattern of speculation highlights the difference between anecdote and authenticated evidence. The Soviet government's dogged pursuit of truth through the Smersh unit was thorough and driven by strategic interest. Recovering Hitler's remains provided a crucial symbol for the Allies, affirming the definitive end of Nazi leadership. This effort laid a foundation for international justice and historical record-keeping, countering false narratives and conspiracy theories. Aside from the physical evidence, legal and political actions through the years reflect acceptance of Hitler's death. Post-war trials and documentation consistently treat his demise as fact, focusing on prosecution of other leaders who still posed threats. This legal consensus further distances official history from unproven escape theories. Ultimately, the official evidence forms the most reliable account available, grounding history amidst a sea of myths. It reminds us how rigorous investigation and scientific validation confront rumors with facts. This truth sets a firm benchmark before considering how Argentina's political landscape fostered shelter for those who followed Hitler, alive or dead. From firm proof of death, the shadowed corridors of Argentine politics and society emerge, revealing how the country tolerated the living remnants of Nazism within its borders. Argentina's political and social climate. Argentina's role as a sanctuary for Nazi fugitives was shaped by a unique political and social climate in the mid-20th century. Under Juan Perón's presidency from 1946 to 1955, the government deliberately welcomed immigrants who could contribute to the country's technical and economic development. This included offering amnesty to former Nazis deemed valuable for their expertise, a policy codified in a 1947 decree. Such political decisions created a permissive environment where war criminals could settle with little risk of extradition or prosecution. Perón's regime actively facilitated the arrival and integration of these individuals through official channels. Immigration offices issued thousands of visas, often with forged or backdated passports that irregularly legalized thousands of Nazis' presence. Ports and airports stamped entry papers that obscured the true identities of new arrivals, effectively masking the scale of this influx. This administrative support was crucial for embedding fugitives within Argentina's fabric without raising alarms. Beyond government policy, the social landscape also influenced the concealment and acceptance of former Nazis. German-speaking communities in cities like Bariloche, Córdoba, and Villa General Belgrano became enclaves where Nazi culture and language persisted. Within these pockets, many war criminals lived quietly, raising families and engaging in commerce without public scrutiny. The surrounding Argentine populace often remained indifferent or unaware, contributing to a collective silence that shielded these communities. Economic incentives were intertwined with this political tolerance. Looted Nazi gold and wealth, estimated annually at $50 million in the late 40s, fortified these enclaves and funded business ventures. German-Argentine firms, farms, and banks thrived with the backing of this capital, embedding the Nazi diaspora into the country's economic life. This financial integration made the Nazi presence less of an anomaly and more a component of Argentina's mid-century prosperity. Resistance to extradition requests was another definitive feature of the political climate. As many as 300 extradition appeals between 1945 and 1960 were ignored, often with tacit approval from Argentine authorities. This delay in justice not only frustrated survivors and international investigators, but also emboldened fugitives to establish permanent roots. The complicity or neglect of the state raised serious questions about Argentina's commitment to international law and moral accountability. Political sympathies toward Axis ideals also lingered among certain Argentine elites and military circles. Some segments viewed Nazis as ideological allies against communism during the early Cold War era. This alignment gave further cover to war criminals, framing their presence within a broader anti-Soviet context. It thus linked post-war geopolitics with Argentina's internal policy decisions, complicating efforts to sever ties with Nazi fugitives. The social narrative surrounding these wartime refugees was often one of denial or dismissal. Many Argentines preferred to focus on national unity and economic growth, rather than confront the dark legacies in their midst. Survivors' testimonies recount the trauma of seeing perpetrators walk free, while neighbors chose silence. This disparity between public facade and hidden history intensified the psychological scars carried by victims and witnesses. The political shelter offered in this period laid the groundwork for decades of unresolved justice. While some Nazis were eventually captured or fled elsewhere, many spent their lives shielded by Argentina's ambiguous policies. The nation's legacy is entwined with this difficult past, forcing reflection on the intersections of politics, memory, and justice in shaping historical narratives. As the decades passed, the consequences of Argentina's sanctuary extended beyond history books into present realities. Today's Nazi sympathizer networks echo the past, revealing how ideology and memory continue to ripple through Argentine society. The legacy of Nazi influence today. Despite the passage of time and legal efforts to confront its history, Argentina's Nazi legacy remains disturbingly present. Recent events demonstrate how far-reaching and persistent the influence continues to be, shaping culture and political expression in some areas. For instance, in October 2023, authorities arrested 50 individuals at a neo-Nazi rally in Cordoba, where they openly chanted slogans intertwining Nazi and Peronist symbolism. These public demonstrations starkly reveal how Nazi ideology found root and continues to fester in parts of Argentine society. The resurgence of neo-Nazi groups is supported by a network of clandestine organizations and private collectors who preserve and glorify Nazi relics. A June 2024 police raid in Mendoza uncovered weapons bearing Nazi insignia, busts of Hitler, and other paraphernalia linked to German-Argentine families from the 1950s. Such discoveries highlight ongoing efforts to maintain a historical narrative favorable to extremist views and keep the memory of Nazism alive in a dangerous form. Historian Federico Finkelstein has documented how Nazi communities in Argentina sustained their beliefs across generations. He notes that schools in some German-speaking enclaves taught revised histories of the Third Reich well into the 1960s. The children of these communities continued to salute Nazi symbols, showing that the ideological imprint extends beyond old survivors to younger generations steeped in these traditions. Survivors who still live in Argentina carry the burden of this unresolved history. Esther Cohen, a Holocaust survivor, recounted seeing Joseph Mengele's face in an Argentine crowd in 1955, a moment of terror and disbelief. Despite such memories, many victims' accounts have been marginalized or ignored, amplifying their isolation in confronting a society reluctant to fully face its past. Beyond cultural remnants, economic and corporate ties to Nazi affiliates linger. The recently declassified files list approximately 300 businesses in Argentina with Nazi connections, including banks, agricultural enterprises, and industrial firms. These entities benefited from wartime loot and political protection, embedding the Nazi diaspora within the economic fabric. Tax records showing assets worth hundreds of millions in modern currency suggest deep financial legacies that are often overlooked. This blending of past atrocities into current society challenges Argentina's collective memory and national identity. The unresolved nature of Nazi integration complicates efforts at reconciliation and justice. It forces a confrontation with questions about how societies remember, forget, or distort dark chapters in their histories. The persistence of neo-Nazi sentiment underscores the difficulty of erasing these scars. Efforts by civil society and institutions like the Simon Wiesenthal Center have brought attention to these issues, pushing for education, transparency, and accountability. Yet their work is met with resistance in some sectors, reflecting ongoing tensions between confronting and denying history. The battle over memory remains a vital front in combating extremist revival. Elsewhere, legal and governmental actions sporadically address these legacies through raids, prosecutions, and declassification of files. They reveal a patchwork of progress and setback, showing how deeply embedded these networks are. The fight against neo-Nazi activity is therefore not only about the past, but a pressing challenge facing Argentina today. From the echoes of concealed fugitives to the open calls of neo-Nazis, Argentina's struggle with its darkest chapter remains painfully alive. Unanswered questions and lasting impact. Despite new transparency from declassified files, Argentina's Nazi past remains murky. The number of fugitives who escaped, their locations, and the depth of their influence are obscured by destroyed or hidden records. Restricted archives and missing files have fueled speculation, mistrust, and enduring pain among survivors and historians. By sheltering war criminals, Argentina obstructed justice and undermined post-war human rights principles. The impunity granted to perpetrators stands as a warning of how political expediency can erode international law. Many fugitives lived openly for years, revealing societal complicity and silence. This collective failure left deep scars that complicate reconciliation and education about the past. Financial networks that aided Nazi resettlement left lasting economic imprints. Wartime loot, worth hundreds of millions, flowed into Argentine institutions, with Nazi-linked companies still traceable decades later. These ties blur lines between legitimate enterprise and tainted capital. Politically, Argentina's reckoning has been uneven. While declassification marks progress, political will remains inconsistent. The persistence of neo-Nazi activity shows that the country has yet to fully confront this legacy. True healing requires education, truth-telling, and moral accountability. Survivor testimonies and archivists' work keep memory alive against denial and distortion. Argentina's experience underscores how fragile justice is when power shields wrongdoing. It reminds the world that victory does not ensure closure, and that vigilance is essential to uphold human rights. Ultimately, Argentina's story warns how denial and complicity can haunt generations. It urges continued pursuit of truth and justice for both history's integrity and humanity's conscience. Argentina's darkest secrets reveal a troubling past of sheltering war criminals and the myths surrounding Hitler's fate. Understanding this history is vital to honor victims and uphold justice. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe for more deep dives into history's hidden truths. Stay with us as we continue to uncover secrets that shape our world.